guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be back with another video. So today I'll be showing you how to make your own cropped drawstring shirt, and I've already posted the tutorial on how to make the pattern. The first thing you need to do is to fold your fabric like this. It's important to know that on your fabric, this is your selvage edge, this is your on-fold edge, and then this is your frayed edge. Now you need to place your front shirt pattern on the fabric and also make sure your grain line is parallel to your selvage edge. But please make sure your pattern does not lay on top of the selvage line. And then now pin it in place and also cut it. The next thing you need to do is to take your back pattern and place it on your fabric like this, but please make sure that this unfold red symbol is parallel to the folded part of your fabric. Then pin everything in place and also cut it out. The next step is to take your sleeve pattern and then place it on your folded fabric while also making sure the grain line is parallel to the selvage edge. After doing all of that, you can now pin it and then cut it out. For the cuff, you're basically going to repeat the same steps, which is to pin it in place and then cut it out. So when it comes to your top collar, under collar, and collar stand, you need to pin these patterns on fold, which basically means wherever the on fold symbol is on your pattern, that part of the pattern should be pinned on the folded part of your fabric. After cutting out your patterns, you need to take them and then wherever you see the red notches, just make a small cut on them. And please make sure the cut is not on the seam allowance. So on your collar stand, top collar and under collar, this notch right here is called your midpoint. And then you need to cut them out like this. So if you notice on your collar stand pattern, it states 2 times mat. This basically means that you need to cut out another collar stand and fold. Now you need to cut the notches on all your other patterns. On your sleeve pattern that is still pinned on your fabric, you need to take a pin and then place the pin inside the middle part of the circle like this and then pull it at the back. Then on the opposite side of the sleeve, you need to take another pin and then pin it next to the first one like this. But please make sure the second pin is also inside the middle part of the red circle. Now you can start removing the pattern and all the other pins except for the 2 new ones. The next thing you need to do is to take a fabric marker and make a mark where the pins are on both sides of your sleeve, like this. Now you can remove the pattern and also the pins. The next thing you need to do is to draw a straight line from the red dot all the way down to the notch at the bottom part of the sleeve. So this is how your line should look, and now you need to take your scissors and then cut along the line to create your sleeve opening. So now we need to cut out the fuse for the fabric, and the patterns that need fusing is the button stand strap, the top collar, the under collar, the collar stand, and also the cuffs. I actually made a mistake on the button stand strap, and the 1 times fuse should actually be 2 times fuse. Then the next thing you need to do is to fold your fuse once like this. Keep in mind that fusing has a smooth side and a textured side, which is the glue. The next step is to place your top collar, under collar, and collar stand on fold, then pin them in place and then cut them out. And then don't forget to cut out the notches before you remove the pins and pattern. So now you need to cut out another collar stand only, because on the pattern it says 2 times fuse. This doesn't apply to the top and under collar because they only require you to cut out the fuse once. So after cutting out the fusing, you should make sure that you have 2 button stand straps, 1 top collar, 1 under collar, 2 collar stands, and 2 cuffs. The next step is to show you how to iron the fusing on the fabric, starting with the collar stand. First thing you need to do is to open the collar stand and make sure the wrong side of the fabric is facing up. Also do the same thing with the fusing, but the glue part of the fusing should be facing up, which is the textured side. Now place the textured side of the fusing on top of the wrong side of the fabric, and then you can pin them in place. You need to put plain paper on top of the ironing board, and then you fold it in half. Then put the collar with the fusing on the paper while also removing the pins. After removing the pins, you can now close it. So when it comes to your iron, you need to make sure there's no steam at all, and then put it on top of the paper with the collar stand inside for like 10 seconds without moving it around. Open to check if they are glued together, then you need to do the rest of the collar stand. So if there's glue on the paper, you should use a new piece of paper so that the glue residue does not stick on the fabric. Repeat the same steps for the top collar, under collar, and cuffs. Now take your 2 front shirts, and the wrong side of the fabric should be facing upwards like mine. Then take your button stand fusing and place it on the shirt. Also make sure the notches on the shirt and the fusing match. Then you can iron it on. So now we're moving on to sewing, and you are going to first need your top collar and under collar. So remember, your under collar is the one that has the 2 notches in the middle, and it's also the smaller one. So it's important to know that this is the top part of your top collar, and then this is your top part of your under collar. Now fold them in half and make a small cut in the middle to create the midpoint. Take the top collar and then pin it on the under collar in the middle. Remember to pin the right sides of the fabric together. Then you're going to pin the corners together, and then you need to find these 2 notches and then also pin them together. Then you'll start sewing from the middle and all around here. Now you'll notice that they don't fit in this area, so what you have to do is to pull them together like this while you're sewing them together in the machine. Now start sewing the collar from the middle, and the seam allowance should be 1 centimeters. Don't forget to pull both sides to make sure they fit. Then it should look like this, and then sew the other side, and remember to also start from the middle. Start cutting the corners, but don't cut too close to where you stitched. Also cut the sides like this, and remember not to cut too close to the stitch. You must also trim the under collar, which has the 2 notches here, and to do this you need to start separating the 2, then cut it smaller but not too close to the stitch line. Now repeat the same process around here. After that, turn it inside out and use a needle to bring out the corners. The next thing you need to do is to counter stitch the collar. On the collar stand, this is the bottom and this is the top. Now fold 1 centimeters on the bottom part of the stand. Don't do this with the other one. Now iron the part where you pinned. The next thing is to fold the stands in half and make a small cut in the middle to create the midpoint. Also do the same thing to the top and under collar, but make the cut where it's not stitched. Place your collar pieces exactly like this, and the under collar side should be facing upwards. Now do exactly what I'm doing in the video and make sure you connect the midpoints together while pinning them. So basically the top and under collar should be sandwiched between the 2 collar stands. After pinning, your collar should look something like this, and then you need to start stitching from the middle, then all the way around here. Also do the same thing on the other side, starting from the middle. You need to now trim around here only on the non-ironed collar stand. Now make these small triangular cuts on the curved part. Now when you make these small cuts, you need to make sure that they are not close to where you stitched because it's gonna fall apart. Then turn it inside out like this and then iron it. So now on the 2 front shirts, you need to fold and pin 1 centimeters on the button stand. Then after that, iron it. So after ironing it, you need to fold and pin in 3 centimeters on the button stand again and use the bottom and top notches as guidance. Then iron it. So now you need to pin the button stand and then stitch it along this line here. Your back shirt should be folded in half like this, then make a small cut in the middle of the neckline to create the midpoint. Place the back shirt flat on your table and then put the front shirt on top. After doing that, you need to pin the shoulders together and then stitch it from here to there. After straight stitching the shoulders together, you should also overlock or make a zigzag stitch to close the seam. Now repeat the same process to connect the other side of your shirt. After connecting your shoulder seams, your shirt should look like this, and then you need to iron the seams while making sure they end up laying towards the back part of the shirt. The next thing you need to do is to place your shirt like this on your table because it's time to add the collar around the neckline. So you start off by pinning the side of the collar that's not ironed to the neckline, and then start pinning from the middle. Then you need to repeat the same process on the other side and also start sewing from the middle. Iron it flat so that the frayed seam is inside the collar stand like this. The next thing you need to do is to pin the collar stand, and while you are doing this, you need to make sure that the pin is also catching the inside part of the collar stand. For the next step, you can either hand stitch the collar stand or you can use your sewing machine to stitch it in place. We have finally completed your collar stand and it should look like this. The next step is to start sewing the sleeve, and for that you'll need your bias tape. The bias tape will go on the sleeve opening, and you need to first open your bias tape like this, then pin it on the sleeve opening. After pinning it on the sleeve opening, you will stitch where the first line is on the bias tape. So after stitching it, it should look something like this. Now you need to fold the bias like this while pinning it in place and then stitch it. You should also repeat the same process for the other sleeve. After applying the bias tape, your sleeve opening will now look like this. Turn your sleeve and then bring the bias towards the wrong side of the fabric like this. Pin it in place and then make a diagonal stitch right here. So now the opening should look like this. The next thing you need to do is to put your shirt on your table like this, and then remember on the armhole, the back has 2 notches and then the front has 1 notch. I need to gather the sleeves so that it can fit on the shirt's armhole, and to do that I'm basically going to be stitching 2 lines. So for the first line, your seam allowance should be 1 centimeter and do not backstitch. And then to stitch the second line, the edge of your foot should be on the first stitch. Remember not to backstitch on the beginning and at the end of your stitch. And then this is how it should look. Now you need to pin one side of the sleeve and then wrap the loose threads around the pin like this. So on the other side, you need to separate the 2 top threads from the bottom ones. And then slowly start pulling the 2 bottom threads to create the gathers. And then evenly distribute them along the sleeve. So now you need to pin the top notch of the sleeve to the seam of the shirt. And now you need to pin the ends together like this, while you are pulling the sleeve gathers to make it fit. And then pin the 1 notch that's on the sleeve to the 1 notch that's on the shirt. Now pin the 2 back notches that are on the sleeve to the ones on the shirt, and then pin the ends again. The sleeve now fits on the shirt. Then the next thing you need to do is to basically stitch it. After stitching it in place, you can remove the gathering string from the sleeve and then overlock or zigzag the seam to close it. The next thing to do is to iron it, and make sure you are ironing the seam towards the sleeve. Now start pinning the shirt and sleeve like this. After stitching it, you can now overlock it or use your zigzag stitch to close the seam. Your shirt should finally look like this. So now overlock or zigzag stitch the hem and then iron in 0.5 centimeters around the hem. After doing that, you need to fold in 1 centimeter and then pin and iron it to create the channel for the string. Now stitch along this part. So now you'll be sewing your bias binding to create the string. So now we're moving on to the cuff, and the first thing you need to find are these 2 notches that are in the middle. Now fold them in half and then pin it in place. After doing that, you need to iron them and they should look like this. Now open the cuffs and fold and pin 1 centimeter on one side, then iron it. Then you need to pin it and then stitch the sides only. Next thing you need to do is to use the scissors to trim the corners and also cut off the sides like this. Now turn the cuffs inside out and use your needle or pin to bring out the corners. Then iron both cuffs. So on your sleeve opening, there is a short side and a long side. On the short side, you must fold the bias inwards like this, then pin it in place and iron it. Now start pinning your cuff around the sleeve like this and then stitch it in place. After that, you need to separate the 2 seams and then only trim the cuff seam, which is the one that has the fusing. Pin the seam towards the inside part of the cuff so that it's hidden, and then iron it. The last thing you need to do is to hand stitch or use your sewing machine to close the cuff. First thing you need to do is to lay your shirt flat on your table, and the buttons will be on the right side of your shirt, and then the buttonholes will be on the left side of your shirt. You need to now find the midpoint of your button stand and then draw a straight line in the middle. Measure the distance between the buttons on the original shirt you used to create your pattern, and then apply those measurements on your new shirt. The next step is to add your buttonholes. After adding the buttonholes, you need to add your buttons, and the measurements you used to space out the buttonholes, you need to use those same measurements to space out your buttons. After spacing out the buttons and making a mark where they should go, you can now start adding them. Now you need to add your button and buttonholes to your cuff, and the first thing you need to do is to measure the distance of the buttons on your original shirt. Then after that, you're going to take those measurements and apply them to the new shirt's cuff. After measuring the distance, you can now start adding your buttonholes and also your buttons. So this is how the shirt turned out, and I absolutely love it. I also like the fact that you can remove the string to make it more simple, and I also think it's a perfect shirt for summer or even spring. But I'm actually more interested to find out what you guys think, so let me know in the comments. I also decided to make a matching handbag with the leftover material, and this is how it turned out. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial, and please like it if you haven't yet, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel.